Well, spring is here, and if you live in an area that sees a lot of snowy winters, you're probably about as excited as I am. There are a few things that you're going to want to do to your car this spring if you want to keep it in good shape, so let's dive right in. Take your snow tires off as soon as the temperatures consistently stay warm. When it comes to winter tires, we hear a lot of warnings about when to put them on your car in the fall. Basically, as soon as it gets below 7 degrees Celsius, they typically will tell you to switch to your winter tires. But there doesn't seem to be the same amount of attention paid towards when to remove these from your car in the springtime. Both are equally as important. As soon as temperatures consistently stay above 7 degrees Celsius, you're going to want to switch back to your summer tires. This can be a little bit difficult to time in places like here in Ontario because we always end up having sort of one last surprise snowfall of the year. So you want to pay close attention to the long-term forecast to see sort of a trend of what the temperatures are looking like. You don't want to do it too soon because that's unsafe, but if you leave it too late, you're going to end up burning these bad boys up. So why is it so important to remove your snow tires at the right time? Well, a big part of what makes winter tires work so well in cold temperatures and slippery conditions is the soft rubber compound. And that same compound is going to wear much quicker in warm, dry conditions. According to Continental Tire, this can actually reduce the service life of a winter tire by up to 60%. Winter tires also have these really tall tread lugs in them. This can cause the tire to be a little bit squirmy, and that friction can create heat and can also wear them out prematurely. Picture a Formula One car on rain tires. Now, whenever the weather is changing, they always want to be very careful about when they switch over to those tires, because if they drive with them on dry conditions, the tires overheat really quickly and wear out super fast. Another thing to keep in mind is that winter tires will typically lower your fuel economy a bit based on the increased rolling resistance. So the sooner you can get these things off your car, the lighter it is on your wallet. Also, winter tires are kind of ugly, and who doesn't want their car to look good? Just saying. Now, what if you're like me and you run the same tires year round? Well, you're not quite off the hook either, because temperature fluctuations can cause your tire pressure to actually drop throughout the winter time, so it's a good idea to double check all of your pressures. You can figure out what tire pressure to run by checking the sticker inside of your door jamb if you're running a factory size, or if you're running a bigger size like I am, you can do the chalk test. I already did a video on how to do that, so go ahead and check that one out if you'd like. Spring is also a really good time to rotate your tires. I have over 60,000 kilometers on these Goodyear Duratracs on the 4Runner here, and I think that played a really big role in why they've lasted this long so far. It helps them to wear evenly, especially on a 4-wheel drive truck like this, so I tend to do it every other oil change. Get your undercarriage oil sprayed. Again. Now this might seem weird, but hear me out. Oil spraying your undercarriage right before winter is a great way to prevent rust, especially on these old Toyota trucks. It creates a sacrificial barrier between the salt and your frame. Pretty important. But as the winter drags on, that oily barrier wears off. Now, how much it wears will vary based on how harsh the winter was and how much you drove your car. And getting it oiled again in the springtime might seem a little bit excessive, but it can be really helpful for either vehicles that are really rust prone or something that you do a lot of winter driving with. It provides a fresh layer of protection, and if you think about it, unlike the fall spray, it's not getting immediately beaten down by the winter elements for the next 6 months. Let's take a look at the condition of my 4Runner after what was a pretty long, hard winter here in Ontario.
Last time it looked like panicky that it needed to be sprayed. This time it's like nice to put another application on,
yeah,
but it doesn't look like it's in dire need of another application. It looks really, really good. You know, we tried to do a really complete job on it in the fall, and it shows now. You know, it doesn't look like it's in dire need. It just looks like, you know, what I would like to see when you're coming for your next spray. I don't want you to come for your next spray when it's looking terrible again.
Wait till it's crusty again.
I want to see it, you know, in for its next spray when it still looks pretty good.
So it's like any other preventative maintenance, basically. It's better to be a little early with it, do it a little bit too soon instead of too late, because then you're playing catch up. It's
exactly.
No good, right?
I'm not going to load your frame up again because I don't want it to drip out.
It's still leaking from last time.
After I loaded up last time. We normally pride ourselves saying what we put on the bottom is no drip, but I can get a little spicy sometimes.
What do you think about, do you remember the spot on the driver's floorboard that you were concerned about?
It doesn't look any different than it did in the fall.
I still
see it. It's not great, but it was still, like, I had laced it in there in the fall, and it was still wet in the spring.
So it hasn't changed?
If it's still wet, it's probably not rusted. No, it looks really, really good under here still. I'm very
That's what I want to hear.
Proud to see it looking this good still after probably one of the worst winters that we've had in, I don't know, 10 or 15 years.
Should you pressure wash the undercarriage first before bringing it in, or just, because this was still really oily from last time. Is it better to leave the oil with a little bit of salt stuck to it?
Absolutely. Heavy, flaky rust or lots of mud would be the only times that I would say to power wash a vehicle.
Otherwise, just leave it?
Yeah.
So the oil does neutralize the salt that is still stuck on here then?
That's correct, that's correct. And this thing, because it's got such a good base on it now from our spray last fall, I don't really see any like residue of salt on it anyways, because the salt doesn't tend to stick to the oil as much as it would tend to stick to like bare bottom of a vehicle. If I was only gonna do a vehicle once a year, I would do it every spring.
Oh, really?
I would.
Interesting.
I would. If you've been consistent with it, and it's had some, you know, some years to build up, you're not going into the fall with no oil on it. When I say once a year in the spring, I don't mean on May 24th weekend after it's been 30 degrees Celsius for 10 days already. That kind of defeats the purpose. This is like the prime time right now where we haven't even really had many hot days yet.
So the idea is in the spring, with the spring spray, you want to get out ahead of the warm temperatures to avoid the rust forming.
That's the goal. Usually we end up with a little bit of a cold, dry patch in southwestern Ontario anyways.
Yeah.
And that's a really great time to get in for a spring spray.
So early spring is better than late spring?
That's for sure. The goal is to get it better and better and better. And at some point I might say, hey, maybe we don't need to do it twice a year anymore. But usually when we've gotten some areas that have gotten as rusty as they are, I probably wouldn't say that. But if this vehicle was 8 years newer or something like that, sometimes we say, hey, let's do it twice a year for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you can go back to once a year. I'm not here, I don't want to make a mess of your driveway or anything like that. We want to put as much on as we need to keep it great. And like I say, on this vehicle, twice a year will probably be what it needs to stay great forever.
You probably inspected or replaced your wiper blades before the winter, but it's not a bad idea to do it again afterwards. Winter is really rough on the rubber between the road salt and all the abrasive sand and everything. Not to mention, some of us get lazy and we just, instead of scraping our windows, spray the washer fluid on, grind it down with your wipers, hope for the best, but you wouldn't do that, right? I know you wouldn't do that. Check out the rear wiper on my 4Runner here. The rubber insert has completely ripped off and I don't even use this thing. While we're talking about windshield wipers, go ahead and top up your fluid while you're here, because even though you don't use it as much as you do in the winter time, it still comes in handy during the summer months. Your brake calipers technically can seize up at any time of the year, but because it's typically caused by corrosion, a salty winter is more likely to cause it to happen. A sticky brake caliper can ruin your braking performance, obviously, but it can also decrease your fuel economy, or it can even create enough heat to actually destroy a wheel bearing. So how do you check for a seized brake caliper? Well, for front brakes, you can just drive in a straight line, take your hands off the steering wheel, and then hit the brakes nice and hard, and see if the vehicle tracks to the left or the right. If it dives either direction, then you know that that one is probably not working. You can also inspect them visually. Typically, a wheel with a sticky brake is going to have a lot more brake dust on the surface than the other four wheels. So you can take a close look. It's a little bit hard on a black wheel, but on lighter colored wheels, if one of them is darker than the others, chances are that brake is stuck on. Problem can also show itself in your fuel economy. If you track your MPGs and you notice kind of a random drop in your efficiency, it could totally be caused by your brakes being just slightly stuck on. I've been using my new Gearhead Tracker to log all of my fuel fill-ups and keep a close eye on the fuel economy of all four of my vehicles. Catch up on any overdue maintenance. Let's be honest, most of us don't exactly like the idea of rolling around on a freezing cold driveway. So if you neglected routine service like an oil change or something, don't worry, we're not going to judge you here. But now is a great time to catch up, because not only is it much more pleasant to be working out here, it's actually pretty enjoyable. It's a lot better than sitting in the basement watching Netflix, you know? Winter's rough on vehicles, especially if you've love tapped a snowbank or two. So do a quick once over around your vehicle to just check for any damage or anything. Pay close attention to like the lower bumper areas and stuff. Areas that are, you know, more likely to come into contact with a chunk of ice or something. Just take a quick look around and see what you can find. Now, of course, we can't forget about the appropriately mentioned spring cleaning. And even if you're not a hardcore detailing enthusiast, it's still a good idea to hit the reset button on the dirt and grime, both inside and outside. And don't worry, you don't have to go all Ammo NYC on it either. Just a good thorough wash is pretty much all you need to do. It's important to rinse off any remaining road salt on your exterior to avoid rust. And for the interior, you want to get it off of your carpets and stuff, because it'll leave permanent stains if you leave it long enough. And the longer the salt sticks in the fibers of the carpet, the harder it is to scrub that out and get it back out. It actually hardens in there and it's a nightmare to deal with. So once every spring, give it a really good thorough cleaning inside and out. Now I'm planning on making a separate video all about a deep dive on spring cleaning and showing you the whole process. Both inside, outside, we're gonna go through all of it. And if you wanna see that, go ahead and comment down below, let me know that you're interested, and I'll make that one very soon. Until then, feel free to watch this video next, and more importantly, get out for a drive with the windows down. It's finally nice out.